Today we're going to look at the Master Book Flippers Facebook community page where there are free deals that are listed every single week. I'm going to just go through them, I'm going to review them, and I'm going to tell you whether or not I think they're good deals and whether or not I think you can actually make money selling them on Amazon FBA. All right, so I'm over here in the Facebook group, Master Book Flippers Community Online Book Arbitrage, Amazon FBA Flipping. And you can see that Victor Feliciano just shared this link. He said, hey, here's this week's free book leads. He kind of goes into how this works, which is review the lowest price merchant fulfilled offers, review the lowest FBA offers and determine a selling price, and then review the profit potential using his software right here. Okay, the interesting thing is he actually tells you what the business model is, and that is to buy the lowest merchant fulfilled offer and then flip it for the Amazon Prime buy box. So I'm actually going to look at these 5 leads and I'm going to tell you whether or not I think that it's a good idea if you should buy these lowest merchant offers and try to flip them for the buy box price and therefore exploit the Prime gap. Let's go ahead and click the free book leads here. Just a quick overview, we can see that there are 4 books. You can see we're looking at the lowest use price and then we're looking at the lowest FBA. So the business model here is to see if we can exploit the Prime gap. Let's go ahead and open up some of these listings. This exercise physiology book says it's a strong selling textbook. You may be able to buy and resell it as a merchant fulfilled seller in January of 2023, probably because you wouldn't have enough time to buy this and get this sent into Amazon. So you'd have to merchant fill it. So let's go and take a look. Looks like right now we have a copy at $28.98, right around $29.33, and then it goes back up to $40. So let's just go ahead and get rid of these rental options. Let's go and look at just the used prices. So it looks like we have a total of, I'm going to say, about 5 copies in the high 20s to mid 30 range. Then it goes back up to 40, and then it goes up to 60. Okay, let's take a look at the buy box price. Buy box price is $69.97. Okay, so do I think that's actually a reasonable price? Well, one thing that we can actually do is just look at the buy box data here. So over the last couple months, we now have some used buy box data. It looks like that for most of the time, the buy box, at least between November and December, is around $45. So in this case, if you were to have bought the book and you're trying to sell it during this time, in that case, you wouldn't be able to have exploited the Prime gap there. Now, you do see that the buy box has been as high as 87. It actually is a little bit higher right now at $69.99. But again, the fundamental question here is, do I think you're getting a great deal if you're buying this for $30 or $35? And I would say you're getting an okay deal because you are buying it at a price that is a little bit undervalued. But the way that you're going to make money is by exploiting the Prime gap or exploiting textbook season. And so he's completely right in saying that, hey, textbook season is coming up in January. Probably what is likely to happen is that prices can go upward because more people are wanting to buy the book. But one thing that I will say is, it looks like there's more demand for this book in August rather than January. And the reason why I would say that is because if you take a look at the used offer count back here in early January, it was about 42. And by the end of the textbook season, it only went down to about 27. So, that's maybe like 15 used offers that basically disappeared in the grand scheme of things. But if you look at August and September, the used offer count got up to 80 and then it went all the way down to 10. And so you can see that with such a large decrease in the number of used sellers, the price actually went up quite a bit. Now, one thing that I would want to do is look a little bit further back into history. And so let's look at 2021's year worth of data and let's look at that there. So same thing you can kind of see here is that January is a textbook season, but the used offer count doesn't go down as significantly as it does in August and September here. August and September here went from 60 all the way down to 17. So a big drop in used offer count and obviously a big increase in price. So here's what I'd say about this book. I think that it's probably unlikely that the price of this book is going to rise too much in January. If you're an FBA seller, I definitely think that you're probably going to be able to make money on this book though, because the way that the buy box works and the way that textbook season works is generally a lot of the students who want to buy books are buying it from an Amazon FBA seller. And this means that if you look at the Amazon FBA offers here, a lot of those are going to go really quickly as we approach textbook season. So it looks like we have a couple offers at 69, then we have 79 and 80. So I would bet you that my personal opinion is that these books are probably going to sell out, and you would probably easily be able to sell this for $79 or $80 if you're a Prime seller. But again, you'd have to get the book in time in order to do that. And I'm not sure if the turnaround time is going to be quick enough because you have to get it shipped to you through merchant fulfilled, then you have to send it to an Amazon warehouse. So what I would say about this book is I personally would not buy it because the timing doesn't quite make sense for me. If I did want to buy it to flip it and exploit the Prime gap and exploit textbook season, then I would have wanted to buy it maybe a couple weeks ago. This deal, in my opinion, would be much better if it were if we're looking at this in July or August, because I think just due to the historical fact that the used offer count in August jumps so much further down during that time, I think that would be a better opportunity for us to exploit the prime gap and also exploit textbook season. But one thing that I want to note is that fundamentally the business model here is to exploit the prime gap, and it is to exploit textbook season. So in other words, you're not really buying undervalued books, which means it's going to be harder for you to make money by selling the book for what it's worth, because technically you're buying the book for what it's worth, or maybe just slightly under what it's worth. All right, the second book that we're gonna look at is called this Glory Retreat. Looks like we can buy this for $15 as the lowest merchant offer, and we can sell it for $45. It does in fact look like the buy box is $45 and the lowest use price is $15. And let's just do a quick little calculator here. So I'm using SellerAmp here. You don't need this. There's a ton of free calculators out there, but it is very convenient. So let's say we do pick this up for $15.06. Is that free shipping? Let's see. That's not free shipping. So we're going to give that $19.05. That would be the buy cost. And let's say we can actually sell it for the buy box, $45.07. Looks like that'd be $11 profit and a 60% ROI. But again, what we want to do is actually figure out whether or not this $45 is a reasonable price to buy this book at. Because if it's not a reasonable price for a customer to buy the book at, then our calculation doesn't make sense, because we're basically assuming that a logical customer is going to buy this book for $45. And if a logical customer is not willing to do that based upon the Keepa data, then it would not be a great buy. Okay, so one thing that I notice about this book right off the bat is that its price fluctuates quite significantly. It can be as low as $4 and it can also be as high as $27. But I would say this book definitely has value. I would say it probably has a value right around $15 is probably kind of what it's worth. It goes up and down based upon the used offer count ebbing and flowing a little bit. But what I would say right off the bat is that if you're buying this book for $15, you're not really buying it undervalued at all. You're basically buying it for what it's worth. Now, with that said, do I think you could get the buy box? Well, if we take a look at the buy box used data here, it looks like that the buy box has been in this $40 range before. Like right now it's at that $45 range, but it has been, as high as that $45 range. It's also been at $27.99. And personally, I would think a more reasonable prime buy box is probably around the $30 mark. And if we just change this metric to $30, then you're gonna be losing money if you're selling it for $30. So again, here you're trying to exploit the prime gap. But my major concern about this is just that because the buy box price can fluctuate so much, that if you do buy your book right now under the assumption that you can sell it for the buy box price at $45, I'm just not sure how realistic that's going to be based upon the data. We only have about 2 months worth of used buy box data, but just in the last 2 months, you can see that used buy box is kind of fluctuating all over the place. I would say this $27.99 is definitely a much more reasonable buy box price. But with that said, some of these sales definitely could be coming at $43. I would just say that I'm not confident if that's a great deal to buy it for basically $20 after shipping. And the reason why I would say that is because there are times throughout the year where you could have bought this book for less money. So maybe instead of buying this book for $15 right now, it would actually make sense to see if you could pick it up for cheaper, maybe like $10. Because again, if we say you can buy this book for $10 and we are now saying that it looks like the buy box of around like 27 to 30 is a more reasonable buy box price, then if you have a buy cost of $10, you're actually profitable if you're selling it at this more realistic buy box. And one way that you could try to find this book for a little bit cheaper price is you could just track it using the Keep a Track product feature. And you can say, you know what, if the price of this book ever gets to, let's say $6 or less, not including shipping, then you can have it send you an email and a Telegram message and a actual notification on your desktop. So I would say this book, I wouldn't buy it personally. And the reason for that is because technically I feel like I'm buying the book for what it's worth. There are times throughout the year where I could have bought it for less. And I think that buy box price is a little bit inflated. Even though some sales could come to that buy box, I think you're going to run into the issue that you probably won't be able to win the buy box at that price very often. And therefore, you're going to have to sell it at a lower price. And therefore, either you're just going to barely break even or maybe make a couple of dollars. All right, the third book that we're going to look at is the Big Book Exclamations. It looks like the lowest use price is $4.62, and the lowest FBA right now is $29.99. To confirm that that's true, we can see that the buy box seller is here at $34.68. It's a prime seller. The lowest merchant is $8.58 with free shipping including. So again, let's just go and put the numbers into this calculator to see what we could expect if we were able to buy this for basically $9 and flip it for a total of $34.68. So it looks like if that's true, if we're able to do this, we'll make a $12 profit, which is 135% ROI, and that would be a great flip. Again, the question is this actually a good deal to buy it for $8? And is this buy box price reasonable based upon the Keepa chart? So let's take a look at the Keepa chart. What's very interesting about this book is that its price has kind of also fluctuated and been all over the place. What's really interesting to me is in May, there are these 3 sales rate drops at over $100. So this book has historical data to show that it has sold for upwards of $100, but that looks like that was a time when the used offer count was really low, which is completely different than today. When this sold for over $100, used offer count was right around 7 to 10, and now it's about triple that size. It's about right around 25, right around 30. Now, good news is that at a used offer count of about 20, this book was very frequently and very consistently selling for about $30 as the lowest used merchant price. So I would say that this, to me right now, seems a lot more reasonable based upon the Keepa chart and the Keepa data. If we kind of expand out a little bit further and we look at 2019, 2020, 21, 2022, we can see that the price of this book is actually pretty steady. Like it's selling kind of on the low end for 15 and it goes all the way up to around $30, $35. So to me, I would say that this looks like it could potentially be a good deal if you're to buy it at $8. Now, one thing that I would want to do is open up all the offers and see how many offers there are and how many of these books are available at that price. And the reason why I'd want to look at the offers is because if any of those offers are Amazon FBA Prime sellers, then the buy box price is going to be very, very low, at least for a limited amount of time until the prime sellers sell out. It looks like right now the lowest prime seller is right around $30, and then it goes up to $36. And I would say, based upon Keepa chart, this $36 range, even this $40 range is probably pretty reasonable. But again, I think one of the issues that you might run into with this book is that if you get a lot of people buying these used offers and their goal is to flip it prime, you're going to see the prime buy box come down for a period of time, just due to the fact that all of a sudden there's a whole bunch more prime sellers. There's going to be a lot more competition to get the lowest used price. And let's just say 10 people buy this copy for $8.58, which it looks like basically 10 different people could buy this for $8.58. Just imagine 10 more prime sellers coming on the listing. I would bet you that the prime price or the buy box price is going to come down, right? Everyone's probably going to list at $29.99, and then everyone's going to have a repricer, and their min price is probably going to be like $17 to $19. So my prediction with this, especially because this is in the Facebook group and there's like 2,000 people in there, is that the buy box price of this book is probably going to hover around $17 for the foreseeable future. I'd say at least for a couple months, just due to the fact that there's a high used offer count. Now there's going to be a lot of people buying this book used and trying to flip it prime. But I think that of the 3 books, this is the one to me so far that seems like it would have the most potential to flip lowest merchant to the buy box price. All right, the final book we're going to review is My No Day. Looks like we can pick this up for $6.02, probably plus shipping, and there are no FBA sellers. So let's go and take a look at this listing. All right, here we are on the listing. The lowest used price is $2.03 plus $3.98 shipping. You can see that they have the buy box, but it looks like there are no prime sellers. So if I come over here and I try to filter by prime, you can see that there is no prime offer. What this means is that if you came on the listing as a prime seller and your price, according to Amazon, is in a reasonable range, you're going to win the buy box because you're the prime seller. So again, the question is, even though we can pick this up for like right around $6, what is a reasonable selling price for this book? So again, the only way you can answer that question is if you look at past historical data and you look at the Keepa chart. First thing that I would look at is just see how the used buy box has changed over time. And again, the way that you'd see that is this little purple button on Keepa here. And by the way, all this data I'm looking at using Keepa is through their paid subscription. I think it's about $20 per month. You absolutely need the Keepa subscription if you want to do this business, because it's the only way that you're going to prevent yourself from buying bad deals and actually finding good deals. But in any case, you can see that the used buy box for a good period of time was right around $25. It's been as low as $6.25 as it is now. And it's also been right around the $21 range. So I would bet that a lot of these sales, like many, like these 3 sales here, some of them probably, maybe 1 or 2 of them was at the buy box price. Definitely a lot of these sales down here were at the buy box price. And I would bet that some of these sales were also at the buy box price of $21. But again, the question is it reasonable for someone to buy that in the buy box price? And the way that I would do that is just look at what is the lowest used price over time. One thing that you should notice is that basically for the entire year, with the exception of the first 3 months, basically the entire year, you could have bought this book for right around the same price as you could have today. So to answer the question of, are you getting a good deal? The answer to that is no, because you could have bought this book for the same price throughout the entire year. It just so happens that right now there's no prime seller. So if you could buy this book and get it into Amazon, and if you could win the buy box at $24.95, then there's definitely an opportunity to sell it. But again, what you risk is, what if by the time your book gets into Amazon, more prime sellers come on the listing and all of a sudden they're listed at $10 or $12 or $15. Then all of a sudden you're going to just try to break even, or you might even lose money. Now, again, what's interesting about this book is earlier in the year, the price of this book did creep up, but it doesn't really look like the book was selling at that price. For example, you can see that in December, there are a number of sales right around the, anywhere from $3 up to $10, and then the price jumped up, but there actually weren't really any sales. This could have been a sell right here. It also could have been a sell at 16, but there were no sales at this price. So in other words, we're already seeing sort of the upper bound threshold for what this book can sell for. It doesn't look like anyone is really willing to pay $30 for this book. So the way that I view this book is the price of this book is right around $5, $6, $7 as a merchant seller. You could probably sell it for that throughout the entire year. If you're a customer, you could probably buy it for that throughout the entire year. In terms of the buy box price, probably a reasonable buy box price when there are FBA sellers on this is probably around $15. That'd be my guess. And I'm not saying you couldn't sell for $21 or you couldn't sell for $24.95, but to me, this just seems risky because, again, fundamentally, you're not really getting a great deal. So again, that was my review of the 5 free book leads. I'm not bashing on the book leads at all. I think it's awesome that there are free book leads out there. I thought this would be helpful for you to analyze Keepa charts. I thought it'd be helpful for you to see my thought process behind it. I personally wouldn't buy any of these books, but with that said, I think you could still make money on some of them. And I also think that if you're trying to exploit the prime gap, that business model definitely can work, but there's just a lot more risk associated with it. And you have to be more careful with your purchases, because if that buy box price comes down at all, then you're holding the bag and you're just trying to break even, and you might even lose money.